Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Combat Sports UK YouTube channel. I'm delighted to have back one of my favourite fighters, Jacinta the Juggernaut Austin. Jacinta, how are you doing? How's things?
I'm good. Good to be back. We said we'd speak again before I fought again. So, yeah, that came quicker than we both expected, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I had an inkling when I saw you in Stuttgart after our interview. I had an inkling that something was in the pipeline. You kind of had that sparkle in your eyes as if, yeah, something's coming. I mean, did you know that this was coming? Obviously, look, you got a title fight with Eternal MMA on the 24th of May, going upper division. Did you know that was in the pipeline, or what were your kind of thoughts just towards that time?
No, I had no idea. I didn't know I'd be fighting on Eternal again. I knew that was the last fight of the OKTAGON contract, so
yep.
We were kind of deciding whether we would come back or, yeah, just kind of see what was on the table after the win.
Yeah, and there's a number of different avenues I want to go down and chat to you today. But I mean, first of all, that fight in Stuttgart. I mean, it must have been a bit of a shock for you, looking in the mirror and thinking to yourself, "Oh no, I've got red hair again." Was it, what were your feelings kind of after that fight? I mean, when we spoke, you were still kind of covered in her blood from that elbow. What were your thoughts kind of around that fight?
I know the trauma of the orange hair. It all came rushing. I think my initial feeling that night, like, I was happy that I won, but my initial feeling was a little disappointed that I didn't get the finish. I think I kept saying that to everyone every night, all night, and everyone kept saying, "Watch it back, let me know what you think." And then I watched it back, and I was pretty happy with how I did. But yeah, initially, like, whenever I win and there's no finish, I get like a little bit disappointed in that. But I also think it made like it got me the right attention. So everyone, if they talk about the fight, they talk about, the bloodbath and the cut, and still got me the right attention, I guess.
Yeah, and there's that image on the MMA Junkie article you shared, which we'll come to later, of you kind of pointing towards the elbow like that. It is things like that kind of make you blow up a little bit in this game. One thing that I noticed as well from you is that you seemed different to when I interviewed you after the Sofia fight, your first fight in Octagon. You seemed a lot more kind of, I want to say, adrenaline rushed after that fight. Did you really enjoy like the war aspect of it as well? Because it was a war, that fight.
Yeah, I enjoyed it gave me a little bit of adrenaline seeing all the blood in the fight. But not only that, like the cut came in the third round, but in that third round, like, there was some clinch exchanges. So it wasn't just all, like, I couldn't just see the blood. It ended up in my mouth when we were clenching. It ended up in my eye whenever we were on the fence. Like, it was all a bit crazy, and it took me a while to sort of come back to planet Earth after that, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I say, you were still kind of walking around backstage with it covered in it. So, but no, congratulations. Honestly, a really brilliant win. Watching it from the stands, one thing I think you don't appreciate from watching it on the screen is the speed. I mean, do you feel like that was your main advantage in that fight, the speed and the precision of your strikes over what Carolina had?
Yeah, I think the speed, and also just like being more well-rounded everywhere. Like, I had a large variety of shots that were working, like knees, elbows, punches, kicks, grappling. Whereas Carolina only really ever offered me one. She only ever offered like the right hand for the entire fight. Other than that, there was there wasn't really a variety of strikes. She didn't try to grapple, which I really thought she would. Sorry.
Very good.
And around the idea that she was going to be grappling me. But yeah, I just more well-rounded and displayed a variety of weapons on the night, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of variation in your strikes, and like you said, especially with those elbows. So obviously that led on to this move back to Eternal MMA, where you're 3-0 at the moment. Kind of fought there at the beginning part of your MMA career. What was the main driver behind going back to the organization and taking this fight as opposed to maybe carrying on with OKTAGON?
So I think I mentioned in our interview after the fight is that I wanted to fight straight away.
Mm-hmm.
I had 6 months off between fights before that, which was probably a good thing in many ways, but I wanted to fight straight away. I love Octagon. Like, I'm not saying that I actually did have intention to resign, was
Mm-hmm.
what I thought I would do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a few things changed the week we got back. I got a new management, and we kind of, came to this crossroads of, do you want to be in Octagon for another 3 fights, which is at least a year,
Mm-hmm.
or do you get one more win and possibly go onto the Contender Series?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having the offer of one more win back home, like, I don't have to fly, I don't have to take like the away. It's for a title, and the Eternal title means a lot outside of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they just kind of threw it out there the week I got back and asked if we want to fight Amina and if we want to fight for the title. I'm in and ahhing about moving up to flyweight
Mm-hmm.
because I have before, and there's a significant strength and power difference there. But I have trained with Amina quite a few times. I know she's not a very big flyweight, so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't be too much of an issue in this fight.
Sure, it kind of adds up. And just on that, like you said, fighting back at home, not having to do the travel. I mean, you wouldn't know from my perspective about what it takes, not out of the performances, but what it kind of does to you. I mean, do you feel like that's going to be a really massive difference, not having to do the travel, jet lag, and the weight cut?
It's like every hard aspect has been taken away. The weight cut,
Mm-hmm.
the travel, being like the bad guy coming to Europe. And I love all that stuff, and I'll happily do it again. But yeah, this is right here, and as it stands, I'm not signed anywhere. So Eternal, like you said before, I did 3 fights with them, and I was signed to them before Octagon,
Yeah.
before UN. And the only reason they released me is because they couldn't find me fights quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because many girls around here, and back then Amina, this is a couple of years ago, Amina was not even pro yet, so there was no chance of us fighting. And while I've been away, she's been quite busy, quite active, building a bit of a name for herself here. So yeah, it just seemed like the right opportunity at the right time.
And you talk about Amina there. You've mentioned obviously why you've kind of chosen to jump up for this title opportunity. I think it makes sense, right? If there's a belt on the line, and you talk about that Contender Series cherry on the cake as well, it makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that you've trained with Amina. How much does that factor into your thinking, or are you just like, nope, she's a different fighter, I need to just put that out of my mind? Like, where's your mindset with that, with the matchup?
Um, it was a long time ago. It was near 2 years ago, 1.5 to 2 years. But I support and follow all the girls in Australia that fight, so I've always watched her fights. Always tuned in to watch, and yeah, she's developed and she's grown, because, like I said, when I worked with her, she wasn't even pro yet; she was still
Mm-hmm.
amateur.
Mm-hmm.
I think six pro fights. She's definitely gotten a lot more, like a lot better and a lot more refined. But I think like the time I've spent in Octagon and even UAE before that, I've been fighting girls with like so much experience, and like very, very, very highly touted and highly ranked girls. And I think that that's going to be the story of this fight. Is I've just gone away and I've had the harder, higher level fights. I think that will be the story here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that the likes of Josephine Knudsen, who's obviously in the UFC now, the Liz, the fight, and obviously this one against Carolina. Does that experience of having a title fight training camp, having an opponent of that level to kind of work towards, and coming to enemy territory, is that really going to play into this, do you think? And what lessons did you take from that first run at a belt, with that fight with the Liz last year?
Um, I don't know. I didn't take too much from it in a negative way, because I'm very stubborn, and I still believe if I fought Delista again, that I would beat her.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was doing quite well in that fight, and one mistake unfortunately lost it for me. But yeah, I definitely learned, I think, since then, to believe in my skills and back myself a little bit more. I feel like I hesitated slightly with Delista. Yeah, like even and when I fought Josephine, like I've learned all these hard little lessons. I've gone international and done all this stuff, and I think that's gonna give me a bit of an edge in this fight. Amina hasn't had these tests, and she hasn't had to learn these hard lessons yet.
Yeah, and that could be the ultimate difference. I mean, I know you're a very introspective person and you do a lot of effort into visualization, anything like that. I mean, aside from violence, how do you kind of see the fight going? I mean, what are you looking that you kind of want to show when it comes to this title fight?
I want to show, like I've said before, that there's no one in Australia and New Zealand that compares to my level with the females. So I want full well-rounded game. I want to beat her in every element of the fight. I want to take it to every discipline in martial arts and show that I'm better at every single one. Yeah, that's my plan. Is I just want to mix it up over the 5 rounds, such a long time. I don't mix it up really at all with Delista. I kind of stuck to my striking. Yeah, I'd really want to mix it up and show that I'm just a higher level in all departments.
Yeah, and we talked obviously just earlier about that, the MMA Junkie article, the on the doorstep kind of looking at wins in May, which you obviously shared as well on your social media. Does that add excitement for you, knowing that okay, I get the job done here, I show what I want to show, and this is what could be there? Or is it another case of okay, it's a good thing to have, but I need to focus on this fight? But
it's a good thing to have, but it means nothing if you don't win the fight and if you don't. Well, like I remember when I was 4-0, like everyone was, Jacinta's next on the UFC, like this, that. And I kind of bought into it quite a lot and convinced myself that it was like facts when it wasn't the facts. It was just something we'd all kind of, made up together. I mean, there's a little bit more substantial, like it's a bit more realistic now, but I don't want to like commit to it going one way and then lose it on the night. Like the article means nothing if I don't actually go night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have that spotlight on, especially from the female section of Australian and New Zealand MMA, because aside from I think Jessica Rose Clark, there's not so many big names out there. So that must be to have it obviously prime time in Europe as well. It'll be morning time in the US, so it's very accessible. It's going to be on UFC Fight Pass. Do you feel like it's a massive stage for you to put your name out there to those audiences? Whereas with OKTAGON, you might have just had, your kind of Central European audiences, but now you are with this fight time able to kind of break into that US market a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm getting out there a little bit more, and this fight's going to help that a lot. It's on Fight Pass. But yeah, just a lot of things have changed about my career and especially like my management has changed as well. So things are a little bit more, there's a better plan in place and things are a bit more clear cut. And all, so yeah, I think one step at a time, and this is the next step.
And is it, you talk about those steps being in place. Is there like an overall dream, so to speak? Not necessarily a goal, because I think a goal is what you're working towards now, but is there a dream of, I want to do UFC, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney one day? That's the dream. That's where I'd love to be. Or whoops, a daisy. Or do you kind of just think in that logical structure?
That would be the dream. I'm also really excited to go fight in the US one day because I feel like I've traveled in quite a few countries fighting, but I've never been to the US, so I'm very excited for that. But yeah, one day, that would be the dream. I'd love to fight in Sydney on the UFC or Perth, ideally Sydney, but Perth, that would be the dream, to be just part of the, I guess you could say, the inner circle. Like we have quite a few UFC fighters around here. Like I'll always run into like your Cooler Bows or Malarkeys,
Nice.
and I look up to them a lot, and I want to be on the same stage as them and be in that like best in the world pool with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you only need to go onto your Tapology page and you see where you are in terms of Western Europe, you're number 2, Australia number 1. So you're there. You're absolutely there, and I honestly wholeheartedly hope, all biased completely here, I wholeheartedly hope that opportunity comes your way, because there's not somebody that deserves it more with how hard you work and just how much of a joy it is to watch you fight. Just final thing from you, if we could get a little prediction, or are you kind of keeping your cards close to your chest for this fight?
I think that I think maybe you'll find the first round is maybe somewhat close, or you know, not really decisive. I consider myself a little bit of a slow starter, in the way that it takes me sometimes longer than I like to get my range and distance and timing right. But I think once I get that, and I've been like testing it out every fight and every camp, and I've realized it takes me about 3 minutes to get that. Average 3 minutes. So I think, yeah, after I hit my 3 minutes and I've got everything worked out, I think that I'll finish Amina inside 5. And I think that it'll be with ground and pound.
There we go. There we go. A nice finish on the record, and especially one by strikes. You've had a submission obviously over Sophia, and then a couple of decisions thrown in there as well. So you must be itching for that TKO finish. Well, look, I'll throw it over to you for any sponsor shout outs or anything like that before we finish up.
No, I'll just shout out my gym, Coyote MMA, like I always do. I'll probably give a big shout out to OKTAGON as well, is because I really did love fighting with them, and they really are one of the, I don't think they get as much attention as like the PFLs and obviously UFC, but they're really up there with their promotion. They do a fantastic job. Even the production is amazing. So yeah, a little shout out to them as well, because I absolutely loved my time with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for me, from a selfish point of view, I liked it because you kept coming to Germany, so it was easy for me to go.
Who knows? Who knows?
Well, look,
there will be one day.
Hey, I hope so. I hope so. All of that just into the Juggernaut Austin, Eternal MMA, May 24th, flyweight title against Amina Hadaya. That is daytime for us over here in the UK and Europe. I think UK kicks off at 10 a.m. In Europe, 11 a.m. And then we're just into more or less walking around mid-afternoon, I would imagine. Well, look, best of luck for the fight. We'll be watching with close eyes and looking forward to some more Juggernaut action. Thanks very much for your time this evening, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. It's always good talking to you.
You're welcome.